Hello everyone. This video I'm going to show you how to use a coil technique for building a clay pot or vase or vessel of any sort. Here it is, stay tuned. Ooh. Right then, all we need for this is of course some clay. I've got a rather large lump of it here, straight out of the bag. There you go, that's some terracotta clay. A little finger bowl to put some water in. We won't need that till a little later on, but I thought I'd go through it now. And a paper plate or a piece of card, because when you're constructing your bowl, it's easy to twist this round. You don't need any fancy gadgets or turntables or potter's banding wheels for this, just a plate. I'm going to pop that to one side. Right, take a handful, something that's comfortable, and we're going to give it a good squeeze, and we need to make some coils. Now I'm going to halve this amount. So what would that be? Maybe a plum size. I know it depends if you've got big plums or not. Let's have a little look. Get a roll. And the surface I'm rolling on is a piece of fabric. If you put it on a non-porous surface, excuse me, for instance, on your work counter in the kitchen or your table, you're going to find that the clay will just stick to it and you can't lift it up. I suggest use an old tea towel, something like that, or a pillowcase, whatever you've got around. Right, the basis of making a good coil is even pressure, and I start in the middle and I'm rolling and I'm moving my way to the edge, that sort of fashion. Let's see what we can do. So start with one hand. Now you need to do a full rotation, because if you're just stuck in the middle and you're doing this, you're slowly going to flatten the coil. It needs to roll a long way. Let's try. There we go. So I'm actually rolling along from here past my hand and onto my wrist. Sometimes you'll see that in a moment. A full roll. Here we go. Like that. I've got some sculptures up here which are rocking. Let's move those. Sorry about that. Right, so I'm going to push hard on this now. And if, there we go, you can hear it thudding. If you apply too much pressure and not enough roll, it's going to flatten out like that. What you can do, if that's the case, is twist. Give it a twist round. If you twist like this, those spirals and the dips you can see there will come out as you continue rolling. So let's give that a try. We've had a flat piece. I've twisted it. It's quite a nice shape in itself. And then we're going to roll out again. So move out gently. Don't be put off if you can't get it straight away. You're not meant to. There's a coil. That's quite a hefty one, but you can see that twist brought it into line. You might just be able to make out where those lines were, but now it's round. That's what we want. Excuse me. I'm going to try from the middle out to the end again and just work it along. Now, of course, the size of your coil depends on the size of pot you're making, but for ease, I would suggest something about so big. What would we say that is? Maybe a thumb? Who knows? But we'll roll it out like that. There's one coil. Now I'm going to do the same to get a few just for this demonstration, and I guess I'll press stop and you can catch up in a mo. Okay, at the top of the screen you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coils of clay ready to go. They don't have to be that long. You just work within your limits, basically. Just be comfortable with what you're doing. And ultimately these are turning round anyway. So having less joins is easier, but if we attach them correctly, then there shouldn't be any trouble at all. Okay, we've got our coils. Next we need a base. This is where I bring my paper plate in. I take a piece of clay. Now, being fresh clay straight out of the bag, you shouldn't need to wedge it too much. By wedging, I mean what we're doing is we're moving in a, because it's a small piece, we are pressing the clay into itself. And if we do it in one direction, the fibres within the clay, if you like, all sort of hold hands and join in merrily. And that will give you ultimately a stronger substrate to work with. But fresh out of the bag, it very rarely needs lots of work to have it ready to use, which is why I like it. There's a bit of clay. You could decide how big you want it. I'm a strong believer that you should just go with what comes naturally. The aim here is to flatten this out. You don't need any special tools or anything. You can just use the heel of your hand there and pat it out. I do have fancy gadgets in my workshop, but I want to show you that really all you need is the clay and a bit of time, and you can make some fantastic things. So I'm pressing down here. If you don't have the strength to press it down like that, you see, you can almost throw it. So you take a piece and you throw it down, and it, as it lands, it kind of and smudges a little bit that way. If you do it different directions, one more, rotate the clay. There you go. Can you see that? See, that's pretty flat all the way around. Anyhow, we want a level-ish base. If you want to use a roller, please do. Don't go and make Welsh cake straight after it, because it will be like my hands. So don't do that. Right. We need some idea of how big this is going to be. For this demonstration, I'm just going to mark up quickly. So it's the inside of a roll here, which I believe is 3 inches. I'm just using a normal knife there, and we cut around. Take your time. I'm going to go around here like this. And again, if we were applying any pressure to that on a normal board, we wouldn't be able to lift the clay as easily. So here is my biscuit shape, if you like, or Welsh cake. Some people call them bake stones, but that's the thing you cook them on. Anyway, yeah, I'm just giving it a little smooth. It's sort of okay. What's that? Maybe £2 coins stacked on each other. And now we're going to bring in the trusty paper plate. Again, if you want to perfect this wheel, just turn it round on itself. Just have a bit of fun. Smudge it. Bring it round. Lovely. Right. Next comes the most important rule in building anything from pieces of clay that join together. And I might even move the plate and go, we need to score and slip. It's massively important, and this is what it is. although these are wet pieces of clay, when they dry, if they're separate pieces and they dry, they will shrink as the water content evaporates. So if you lay one piece on top of the other, for instance, as both of them shrink, they will pull apart from each other, and that's where you'll get your gap. We don't want that. We need to combine them. And to combine them, we do this. You may see creeping in here. Fork, knife, knife and fork, fork and knife. And get some water. The tiniest splash will do to start with. Right, here's the process. Let's see, can we do a zoom in? Yep. Here's the process. I'm going to take this fork and just score. This is what I mean about the plate. Can you see how I'm turning the plate? I'm going to go one way, and this is roughing up the edge or scoring. And then we're going to go the other way. So I'm getting a cross hatch, and those little bits of clay that have kind of raised up and are sat there, that's going to act like our glue. There you go. You must score and slip both sides. When I say slip, slip is a clay glue made from dried clay, which you grind into a dust and then you add water. So almost like, I don't know, it's all foodie today, isn't it? Like a bechamel sauce or a batter. If you're going to make pancakes, you've got that dry dust and you need to make it into that sort of cream consistency perhaps, or a batter consistency. Because this is very wet clay, it's fresh out of the bag, scoring and wetting the edge will be enough. So fingers in, round in the water, and just make that wet. Now the piece joining it also needs to be scored. So just a little different view there. There we go. There's our biscuit of clay. I'm going to start with this fella here, this mighty long one, and I'm going to score. So it's scraping or scarring the surface, if you like so. I'm going to do it just the length of my hand. Little water, which I'm putting on with the fork, and I can scrape it at the same time. There we go, done. Now the principle for this is we have now scored and slipped both sides. I'm coming in here and the two scored areas will go on and we apply a little pressure. Here I'm going to smudge this down on an angle into the base and then score that, and you'll see why in a moment. Simply follow round with your coil, pressing as you go, like that. And when I get to this bit, can you see that there? When I get to that bit, I'm now going to go up a little and press that into the previous coil. You need to have a look quickly. You press that base down and we've gone up the little ramp slightly. Then we need to score and slip. Again, I am just using a kitchen fork to scrape, a dip finger, little water in, and we lift our coil down and push it round. This part isn't scored yet, so again I will scrape the layer that's already done. I will scrape, we score and slip both sides and press those together. Now, that is basically the start of our coil pot. But before we go too much higher, we need to incorporate these bits in. So I'm turning, and I'm going to simply bring some of the base up to the coil, some of the coil into the base. Can you see that? So I'm going to smooth round and pushing it in. Just with your thumb, just stroke it one way or the other. If you've pressed harder in one area than another, you may have a bump. We'll just go with it. What we're trying to do is smooth that part out, like so. So there is nearly, look, here's a piece of mist. So that's the outside layer done for 1, 2, 3 layers nearly. Same applies to this bit, the last one you put on. Just pinch them together. Smooth them together as you go. I'm sort of pivoting the base of the pot there on my fingers, and I'm then turning round with this hand. Like so. I do find working with clay rather therapeutic. If I drift off mid-video, I do apologise, but this is very relaxing. There's our scored piece. We're going to finish that off there. This time I'm bringing the top up because it's a little larger. There's our scored area, so we'll twist it round and smudge. That's a technical term, by the way. We are smudging our clay or blending it in. So structurally, that outside's looking good. We've come up this far so far, and we're left with these coils in the middle. Now, they can be blended in. What you don't want to do, if you continue with this coil and you make it too high, it will be hard to blend in and smooth the interior. So I'm going to do that now. Same technique really. What I do at the beginning is I try to bring the first coil into the base, like so. And then the middle one, it's hard to explain, the middle one up, and combine them together. So it's an up and down motion with the thumb. Up and down. Of course, if you have tools, you can do that, but I think these are the most important tools we have. Our fingers and hands. Let's see what we've got. So we had our base here. We started with a coil and wound around following that base, and at the moment you can see we've got to here. So this is where the last coil went up on itself. You smooth that in. There we go. So to continue raising this, I will score everything I can see. And I just wanted to get you started on that really, but what I like to do, once you've established that technique and we know where we're going with it, I would take the whole coil and score that all the way down one side, because of course then you don't have to fiddle about with it. So this is what I'll do now. Let's have a look at that. Scoring the coil. Although it's round, I'm going to say we're doing it down one side of it and back the other way. That gives us those raised bits. Water on the fingers. That's nice and wet. Same on here. and I will take the one end. Let me turn it up for you. So I'm taking the one end here and I'm joining it up. I'm going to push it a little so it bulges, and then we will incorporate that in. Can you see that? So I'm just starting there. This will get smudged in a moment and blended. Now I'm going to go round, round and round. Here we go. Now if you wanted to make a straight one, almost like a cylinder, I guess is what we'd say, your coils need to be on top of each other, directly on top of each other, one by one. If you want to make a bowl that comes out like so, you have to step that coil just off a little bit. So if you look at this here, you'd have to come, the next one would be sort of half on it. You can't do that because it'll just break, but you need to slowly, instead of your coil being here, you need to slowly move it over and over for maybe 2 or 3 coils or around the outside edge, and then you bring it in back to the middle, and that will give you a so and so. Now I'll try to do that, and we'll have a little look in a moment. When you have your coils, you need to smooth them in. So now we're going to blend, and I'm going to go from the top to the bottom and just simply smudge these in together. Blend them in. But I do like the word smudged, as you may have noticed. Right, it's hard for me to do that way, so I'm just going to stand it up so you can see what's going on, hopefully. This technique of drawing your finger down to the bottom, combining all those layers, and then supporting it inside slightly. Now if you find that doing one of these in one go is too much for you, if you need a break with your hands, simply put a carrier bag on it, a plastic carrier bag, or some cling film wrap around it, and that'll be good for days and days. It'll even be good if you want to try it next week, but don't leave it out in the air because it will dry. Of course, you can leave it out in the air when you are happy with it and it's finished, but not if you're planning to come back to it. This clay might be a little too wet actually to do this, but we are trying, we are making a video. I think we're getting there. I've gone, this is a rough outside, I've blended all this down. Can you see how there's gaps there? I'll just simply squeeze it together. I'm sliding my thumb over in this motion, supporting the base with my other hand. And while I'm doing these top ones, my fingers are in there, so we're doing this. I'm pushing against my other fingers. And you just continue this process really until you're happy with how it looks. I like seeing that it's made by hand. I like seeing finger marks and these sort of grooves and lines. I mean, this, you could turn this into some kind of bark or tree-like pot if you wanted. But if you like your things very smooth, you can use a spatula, an old one of course, or an old credit card. Sometimes I get junk mail through with these, join us now for this amazing offer. The offer's rubbish. The cards are great for skimming up and giving you a nice surface. But always hands first, please. Get your hands in there. Get the rough shape. Remember, this is a coil building technique. If we were making a pinch pot this big, it would be quite tricky to hold, and you need an awful amount of clay. This way we can add bit by bit. So I hope you can see that this is coming together now. There's our original base. So that needs smoothing off. Again, the clay is wet, so what we do as much as we can to get it in the near enough right shape while it's wet. And if we could leave that out for an hour and come back, and the scraping and the finishing would be a lot easier to do, because it's giving us more resistance then. It's a little bit harder. But at the moment, we're still in our coiling stage. I quite like that already. So it does bow out slightly, but still, if it's not, because this is very malleable, what we can do, if you're not happy with the shape, how it looks, get your hand in there, tap the outside, and this can flatten out those fatter areas. Wish I could do that with my belly, but still. There we are. I might give it a try actually. You can still see these coils. Now, it's that smoothing motion we want to do. Remember I said it's better to do it at the beginning, because not everyone has tiny hands to get to the bottom, but it's the same technique. I generally do 3 or 4 coils, hand in, smudge it all up again. Let's give it a little try here. I can see this bit. So I'm pulling down. You see that? Pulling down, turn, and pulling down, down. And we do that until you're happy with it, until it's smooth. Now, this isn't exactly straight, so I'm going to bring my knife. I'm going to crouch down, have a little look. I'll find my lowest point. You could add more clay, of course, but I'm just going to show you. It could be nice and easy to trim. This is a butter knife. I do have wires, but again, this is all about how you can do this at home. That's not far off, actually. I'm going to gently go round. Take little bits off at a time. Support on the inside and cut like so. There we go. We're getting there. I'm going to pinch this back round. Now you may find that I can see a little hole here. What I'm going to do is take a bit of that clay that I've just trimmed off. I'm going to wet it. I'm going to shove it in. And you blend, blend, blend until you can't see it. That's the beauty of clay. Little problems are solved very, very quickly. Smoothing around, up and down. A very tough angle I'm on here to try and show you. Hopefully you get the gist. Coils evenly. When we're rolling our coil, if it gets a little flat, we will twist and roll again, and it will become a nice sausage again. If you find they're getting too long, cut it in half. Just work with smaller pieces. We can bash our base out with our hand onto our absorbent surface, pillowcase, tea towel, old sheet, anything you got. We've all got tea towels and sheets that we've been meaning to throw out for ages, I'm sure. Just get one of those out. We make a base. You can draw around a saucer, or in my case, the inside of a masking tape or painter's tape roll. When you've got your coils, the best thing to do is slip and score. You must always slip and score. Both sides of clay that's joining. Slip and score. I've used a knife, a kitchen knife, or butter knife I should say, or normal cutlery knife, and a fork, which is somehow I've seemed to have lost. There we go. You add your coil, you press down. When it's at the right size, you stop. Everything must be joined correctly, but you can see when we're then working on it inside and out, this is incorporating it into one solid piece. If there are any air bubbles when it comes to firing, they will pop and your pot, vase, sculpture, whatever it is made of clay, will explode. I've had it happen only once to me. I worked on a bust, a head and shoulders, which was larger than life size, and it took a long time to make, a very long time to dry, and then a long time to pick up the hundreds of pieces which were in the kiln when it exploded. So there we go. Please score and slip always. Sometimes if your pot's not quite straight, you can take it, bit of support when you turn it over, and drop it onto your surface like so, and then you get that kind of thing going on, which isn't, I've got to be honest, half bad, is it? There we go. When you've got to that stage, as I said, we let it settle up for a bit and dry, and then you can smooth these off with a spatula or a credit card and decorate it how you see fit. But this is the basics of coil technique. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for other videos from Inside Out Cymru.